last night planning to give a fiery anti-American speech, but ripped it up because he had just spoken to President Trump.
Today we spoke on the phone for the first time since he became president.
He was shown Mr. Trump's unexpected tweet saying it had been an honor to speak to the Colombian president, a few days after calling him a drug dealer and saying he'd better watch his ass.
The mission itself has a lot of facets that I have an enormous amount of questions in. Why was it so easy? Because it was very easy. And how do you get Maduro in bed when the country is being hit by over 100 2,000-pound bombs? We use that bomb, the graphite bomb, which goes into the electrical substations, blows up over them, and shorts out the entire substation. What's missing from this is where was the armed forces of Venezuela's military forces? If there was the art of the deal being carried out here, it was carried out over the last 4 months with the assistance of the CIA and other governments, where the government of Venezuela had him already controlled and packaged and turned over. And all they had to do was go in and neutralize the final group for show and walk him out.
Flying debris in some areas, the worst snow in a decade in others, as well as heavy rain and large waves along parts of the coast.
They are treacherous. We have been advised that it could turn into hurricane force 12 winds.
Storm Goretti could potentially become more powerful than the Great Storm of 1987, causing travel disruption, power issues and potentially risk to life. So tonight we are across the UK, live, giving you the latest as we know it. Also on the programme. Thousands gather in Minneapolis after a woman is shot dead by federal agents. Trump calls the shooting self-defense. The local mayor calls that garbage. Why millions of you may be addicted to decongestant nasal sprays and not even realise it. And
what a lovely flick by Yoran. Very well done.
Our hearts are broken. The family of Leeds and Wales footballer Terry Urath paid tribute following his death.
Hello, it's Adam in the Newscast studio, and shortly I'll be joined by Faisal Islam, who's going to tell us the latest news in computing from the quantum realm, which we will explain what all that is, don't worry. But first of all, today's big international story has been the US dramatically seizing a Russian-flagged oil vessel which was linked to Venezuela. And this all happened in the sea in between Iceland and the UK. And the US did this with British help. The ship was called the Marinera. Previously, it had been known as the Bella One because it had only recently transferred its international flagging, as is done in the shipping industry, to Russia. And then shortly after that, the US Coast Guard seized a second vessel linked to Venezuela, but this time in the Caribbean. So there is a lot to unpick here.
Now, the precision of America's military extraction of ex-President Maduro stands in stark contrast to events since then. The regime is still in place and in charge, cracking down on the opposition, while the American fleet is moored, locked and loaded off Venezuela's shores. At home, Donald Trump's approval ratings continue to plummet over his performance on the economy, while abroad his taste for raw American power only appears to grow. In the last week alone, Mr. Trump has put a series of countries in his sights. At the press conference about the Maduro capture, he said he liked the sound of Operation Columbia and warned its president he should watch his ass. He said something is going to have to be done with Mexico. He described Cuba as ready to fail and going down. On Friday, after recent protests in Iran, he claimed the US was locked and loaded and ready to go. And on Sunday, he said he needed Greenland for defense. Our US editor, Anushka.
The United States produces more oil than any other country in the world. And President Trump talks about it a lot.
Take the oil. Keep the oil. Drill, baby, drill.
But he doesn't just talk about America's oil.
We're going to have presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil.
So why is he interested in more oil when the U.S. has so much of its own?
In May last year, a number of English county councils did not hold the elections they were due after the 4-year term. We were assured at the time by the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner it would simply be a 1-year delay, all because of local government reorganisation. And once again in November, when questions were asked at the House, we were told, no, the elections will go ahead. And then suddenly, on the 18th of December, Minister Alison McGovern said this in the House of Commons.
Councils are telling us that where capacity is a problem, postponement would free up resources to be concentrated on local government reorganisation and the delivery of good services. To be clear, should a council say that they have no reason to delay their elections, there will be no delay. If a council voices genuine concerns, we will take these issues seriously and would be minded to grant a delay in those areas.
Hello, good evening to each and every one of you. How are you all doing tonight? I do hope you're well, especially if you're in one of those areas that have been affected by these storms. I hope you're all staying safe. And what better thing to do, quite frankly, when you're locked up indoors than sit and watch Jubes and Co. If you do need to go out, of course, you can listen to me.
What the hell happens next? Venezuela apparently now is a de facto protectorate of the United States. The US is intent on running Venezuela with a gun stuck to the head of the acting president. There's no better person to speak to about what happens in Venezuela, but what about Colombia? What about Mexico? What about Cuba? I mean, he's got a list and he's working his way through. Miguel Tinker Salaz, who's
It is impossible for someone to show you that video from yesterday and prove to you, well, this is terrorism. But that message, because it was propagated so early by this administration, is being accepted by millions of people without a second thought. And that is very alarming because it expands beyond this incident. What happens when there's an act of terrorism? Well, what you do is you increase a law enforcement presence and you crack down on the potential perpetrators. There are folks inside this administration, people I worked with in the first Trump administration, who have been waiting for and looking for a pretext for a domestic terrorism crackdown.
One of Britain's major vulnerabilities is its undersea cables. We're now basically a service economy. Like 70% of our economy is now service-based. It's estimated that some 60 cables that relies on massive amounts of data being moved around. Everything from information itself on stocks and shares, through to money, through to communications, and all the information that goes with it from there. That creates a vulnerability we're not at the moment able to protect as well as perhaps we might. Leading from the UK elsewhere, covers like £1.5 trillion worth of financial information and data every single day. Cutting any one of those cables could create a problem. Cut a number of them, and you start to have the breakdown of all sorts of systems, financial, personal, social, across the country as a whole. For many years, the UK has been very much aware of what's known as the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap. And this basically is a stretch of water that, if properly controlled, limits the ability of Russian vessels to exit from their bases in the Kola Peninsula alongside northern Norway out into the Atlantic. And it's from there that the threat would actually come, which might end up cutting our cables. One of the challenges with defending our cyber infrastructure, particularly our cables, is we don't necessarily recognise how important they are to our everyday life. But as they are the major source of information, data that flows around, everything from food supplies coming in, which are put onto our supermarket shelves, through to the operations of the National Health Service, trains, aircraft, air traffic control, all rely on data being moved through cables, and particularly in things like aircraft movement, that needs to be moving across the channel or to other parts of the world in order to support air traffic control. So an attack on those cables, whether direct or a cyber attack which actually interfered with the data, would have a major effect on our economy, our society, because very quickly law and order may break down if the supermarket shelves started to empty. And so the vulnerability of our cables to attack by Russia or indeed any other so-minded enemy is a real issue, and it's very hard to manage. We've got
dress myself in cashmere. Woo, 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 woo. I dress myself in $100 Cleveland flags. Who made this coat? You take life, the ups and downs. If you're a real man, you never go down, you just stay up. Woo, woo. The Rolex, wearing, diamond ring, wearing, you're feeling it, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators up. There is a kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, any woman you want, son of a gun, the late shot boy.